Iranian drone attacks on CIA facilities in the Gulf have prompted US intelligence analysis to investigate whether Russia assisted by providing targeting information or advanced drone technology. For more deeper analysis, we are joined by geopolitical analyst Ms. Jelena Novakov, live from Belgrade, Serbia. Thank you, Ms. Novakov, for joining us. So, reports suggest Iranian drone attacks on CIA facilities have raised questions in Washington about possible Russian technical assistance. So if such involvement were confirmed, how significantly do you think would it change the strategic landscape?
That is certainly a possibility. Russia has been a long-standing ally of Iran, even during its war with Ukraine, so that hasn't disrupted that allyship or the help that Russia provides to Iran. This is also quite beneficial for Russia because as the crisis deepens in the Middle East and the war escalates, the less focus there is on Ukraine and in particular the very problematic situation Russia finds itself in now. From Russia's perspective, even though they find themselves in a difficult situation with recent Ukrainian drone attacks on Russian facilities, it is on a large scale beneficial to get help for Iran so the Middle East tensions can escalate. This would be a significant discovery if proven true, but also I don't think it will lead to any direct confrontation between the US and Russia directly, because it's not in the best interest of either one of those countries, given that Russia is busy with Ukraine and America is now busy in the middle.
And Jelena, the latest US strikes have hit areas close to the Strait of Hormuz. So while Iran continues expanding its retaliatory operations, so how close is the region to a broader military confrontation involving multiple states?
Well, negotiations seem to be off the table right now, and the tensions seem to escalate every day more and more. I think also another significant development that raises even higher is this direct involvement of the Houthis and Saudi Arabia. There is significant risk and reason to be concerned when it comes to potential of further escalation in the Middle East, and that can include American targeting of these alleged underground sites enriched uranium, even potential ground invasion if the other Gulf countries decide to join the conflict. They obviously have been under attack, but it is not necessarily in their best interest to get involved directly in the conflict in Iran, because America has proven to be not as effective in completing the goals of this war, even though those goals seem to be undefined, and it's even less effective in peace negotiations. So I'm not entirely convinced that those countries are willing to risk their economic stability and the safety in general to get involved in America's war, though that might change depending on the conditions that America.
And the United States has vowed to punish both Iran and Houthis, so over attacks in the Red Sea. So could pressure on multiple fronts, do you think, increase the risk of wider regional conflict?
Certainly, Houthis have been quite effective in disrupting maritime traffic since 2023, and now we have reports that Iran is directly supplying them. Obviously, Houthis continuing and increasing that disruption in maritime traffic is something that is beneficial for Iran. However, this poses significant risk for Saudi Arabia and its economic stability. So also given this civilian nuclear deal, that we've seen between Saudi Arabia and America is probably another incentive for America to get Saudi Arabia to join the conflict perhaps more directly if there is a ground invasion or a increase in aerial attacks, especially in the Strait of Hormuz or even in Tehran and other parts of Iran. So the risk of this conflict widening and becoming more serious is significant. And if Saudi Arabia joins the American logic, is that other smaller countries will have no choice.
And Gulf countries are trying to avoid, obviously, to be drawn into this conflict directly. So how are regional powers, do you think, balancing their security cooperation with Washington while trying to prevent further escalation?
Well, the Iranian attacks have caused other Gulf countries to have to rely on the United States more. Obviously, it's not in their best interest for this war to expand. However, if they perhaps look more broadly and forward in the future, if there is a possibility to create another Iraq out of Iran, and we should obviously allow further control over the Strait of Hormuz to America, but then also to America's allies in the Gulf. That would potentially be very beneficial for those countries if they decide to join. However, that risk of that failing is still very significant. So the best course of action would be to try and keep those lines of diplomacy as open as possible.
And looking ahead, do you expect this conflict to remain US-Iran confrontation? Or is there a growing possibility, do you think, that it could evolve into a broader geopolitical crisis involving other major powers?
I suspect we'll see different points in the Middle East where we'll see some tension breaking, like we see with the Houthis. That probably isn't going to be the only one. But the main conflict and the biggest risk will be in the Strait of Hormuz and Iran, but also other Gulf countries where American bases are located. But yes, this will primarily officially be a conflict between the United States and Iran, and then the United States does have its allies that will perhaps work covertly with them, which includes the Gulf countries, and there's always a possibility of Israel joining this club.
Many thanks for your time.